Right, good evening everyone. It's good to see that there's a lot of people here and there's a lot of chatter, so I want to see that continuing, not during the presentations of course, but hopefully when everyone has a chance to have a chat during the networking and half-hour break that we will have. So, but thank you very much. It's a dreary evening in Bergen, so what a better place to be than spending it with some colleagues and friends from university and industry. I see that this evening again, the students have separated themselves from industry as they did last time, but that's really good. It's good to see so many students here as usual. We've geared actually this evening mostly towards the two old students there. We've geared this evening really quite predominantly toward for you guys actually, and we'll probably end up doing most of the presentations and evenings for NOS this year based around the students and getting some interaction from you guys and providing some, hopefully some opportunities for you all as well. But it's also good to have some of the old school here as well, so they can answer any questions you might have about the industry in general. So yeah, this is the first evening that we've got planned for this year. Really pleased with the turnout. Just a little bit about the board. Ricardo, this isn't working. Okay, well these guys are the sponsors, and it's this is why there's food on the table. We can actually hire this this location. So everybody, please help themselves. That food has got to go. I would like to take most of it home, but please help yourselves throughout the evening. Right, let's see if this works. So those are the sponsors. We couldn't do it without them. It's definitely not working still. There we go. Right, okay, yeah. So my name's at the top there, Stuart Duncan. Ricardo's my wingman, does an awful lot of help as well, but we couldn't do it without this team. Derek is unfortunately not able. He was going to be here tonight. He was going to actually have a presentation, but he had to pull out the last minute. Odd is one of the older students sitting at the front there of the auditorium there, so a guy who's always present. We've got we've got Elizabeth as well, and we've got it is Armand, isn't it? Or Armand Solberg, who has shown a lot of interest in joining us on the board. So this is the first time I've kind of announced that he's going to be here. We chatted briefly via email, not even verbally, before Christmas about getting him involved. It's really important, I think, that we have some young blood on this this team. We're all getting on a bit, as I've mentioned numerous times previously. So having Armand on board, we're going to get him involved in a lot of the planning that we're going to do this year. And I'll come on a little bit about what's going to happen on the next slide, but really good to have him on board. I was going to maybe put it out for a vote, but that takes up too much time. I just thought, let's get Armand involved. So I think that's the right decision to do. So welcome, Armand, and you can meet some of the team tonight and we can get started. So a little bit about what we've got planned for this year. It's actually really difficult with all the different all the things that are happening next week. There's a big seabed mapping conference up at Yale over the week, and then in March there's the oceanology. So actually fitting these events around other things that are happening is quite challenging. So there's a big break after this evening. We've got this subsea Dagen in Stavanger on the 9th of April, and then I'm talking to Stig Frode, I think his name is, at Högskolan på Västerlanda to do a very similar event where we're going to get all the sponsors that you saw on the first screen along to present themselves in a little 5-minute dit of what they can offer students at the University of Stavanger and Högskolan på Västerlanda. So I think this is a really good initiative. It's what we've kind of been wanting to do for years. So you guys can get, or students anyway, we're either location get an opportunity to see what is possible offshore. There's the other event down at Oklahoma with RTS. We're going to be talking about gadgets. In October, we're back here again. Hopefully not here. Nothing against this place, of course. But we're hoping to do something a little bit more interactive down at one of the key sites here in Bergen with another company that is part of the NOS sponsorship. So that could be very good. And then we'll go back to Stavanger again for the dinner. So I thought I'd just mention a little bit about what the plan is for the year. But if anyone's got any good ideas and if they want to see anything, it's just a case of drop us an email or contact us on the phone. So a little bit about this evening. I think this is an excellent agenda. They are actually invariably all very, very good. I think it kind of falls together very nicely. John, who's kind of left NOS, after about 10 years, is coming back to do a presentation shortly. And then a colleague of mine, Armand, is going to be presenting a very interesting project that we're all involved in at the moment. And if anyone wants to know about that project, there's 3 or 4 of us here from DOF who can wax lyrical about this project for hours on end. But we won't bore you too much. That's a very interesting project at the moment. Julian isn't here at the minute. He's currently on a plane and will be here. So we're going to move him to the last presentation. But Julian is someone I've known for, and we've all on this side known for many years. Very entertaining presenter. So hopefully you'll enjoy that. And I think what I really was keen about with the last one is Johan. Johan I've known for many years, although I haven't seen him for about 15 or 20. But this is something that is very much available for everyone especially students and new people to the industry. He's going to tell us a little bit about how you guys can get involved in hydrographic survey. So a great opportunity there to learn a little bit about what is offered through his Dutch company. So on that note, I'm going to wish you all a good evening. I may have to leave at some point. I've got child issues, so I might have to jump out of here. But I've got Ricardo here. I've got John, who knows enough about NOSP anyway. We've got Odd, and now we've got Armand. So we've got there's plenty of people who can talk about NOSP. And if you've got any questions, just come to one of us. So on that note, I will hand you over to John Wynn. I look forward to your presentation, John.
Thank you.
John, sorry.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, good evening, ladies and gentlemen here, and to all the millions of viewers out on YouTube. I hope you'll enjoy this evening. A bit of my background. I've been in the offshore industry all my working life. I've worked with one company all my working life, so it's a bit of a rare thing. I joined the industry in 1982, where I joined a company called Raycom. They were purchased by Thales Geosolutions, who were then purchased by my current employer, Fugro. So all the 3 companies, it's one company in the day, and that's like 42 years in the industry. So I think I have a bit of experience. This evening, I'd like to talk about dynamic calibration of navigation sensors with GNSS technology and present 13 years of experience. Prior to 2010, all calibrations were done with land survey techniques. Loads of surveyors traveled the world using lots of carbon footprints, lots of money, undertaking gyro calibrations, MRU calibrations, verifications of DGNSS, RGNSS, dimensional control, and offset surveys. In addition, the vessel was in port during these operations, which costed money. And in true offshore style, the last thing that happened was that when we were finished with the calibration, the vessels were waiting for the results before they could sail. So there was lots of pressure on the surveyors to get things done right and done quickly. Back in 2010, Fugro looked at doing this sort of work dynamically, with the vessel in motion or by a quayside or just anchored up. You'll see that all the same techniques or sensors can be calibrated except for dimensional control, because we need a dimensional control done on the vessel before we start doing dynamic calibrations. So what's the advantage of these? Well, as I said, they can be done anywhere. Whenever you need one, you do one. It can be in production, it could be in transit, or it could even be in port. And whenever you want it. Like I said, it's environmentally friendly. You're not building a massive carbon footprint by traveling the world. doing sort of work. And it's cost efficient, as there's no need for additional time in port for the vessels. The vessels can come into port, do the crew change, sail, and they can do the calibration on the way to location. The technique is based around logging data GNSS receivers. One in the bow and two in the aft on the port side and starboard side. We need data logged for 4 hours. We log in raw format and convert to Rhinex, and logging at 1 Hertz interval. This gives us a good basis for deriving the vessel parameters in order to do the calibration.
Sorry, John, to interrupt. But our online users don't see the screen for some reason. So I'm just going to try one more time. Excuse me. Here. And can continue. It's right here. Yes, thank you.
We were. So, in order to do the rest of the work, we need to gather vessel metadata. We gather data from the vessel sensors. This is sent into Fugro for processing. This includes vessel name, logging times, offsets, and these are very important. We have a good dimensional control offset done for all the points into the vessel frame. Yeah, and other things related to the data collected. Navigation logging. This is logged simultaneously with the GNSS data. This is done using the vessel's production system and logged by the navigators or surveyors on the vessel, so as food was not there. Everything's logged again at 1 Hertz, all time tagged to UTC. And we get in heading sensor data, motion sensor data, and DGNSS system data. And then we do the processing. It's of importance to us that the processing software is 100% non-Fugro, because we're using this technique to check our own systems. And if we're using our own software, some people might say we're cheating. So we don't use any Fugro software. For the real-time kinematic processing, the baselines, we use a package called GraphNav, which is produced by Novotel in Canada. And this is used to get the vectors to define the vessel heading, pitch, and roll. And the technique is moving bays, such that the vectors can be derived while the vessel's in motion. For the precise point positioning and the DGNSS verification, we use a package called Terrapos, which is produced by a company called Field, previously Terratech in Oslo. And this allows us to produce precise positions for the antennas. We log using raw data and precise orbit collections downloaded from the internet. Unfortunately, this causes a delay in processing because you have to wait until the rapid orbits are available for processing. So how does it all work? Well, here's your vessel. Here's your 3 points logging data at 1 Hertz. What we do then is we process on an epoch-to-epoch basis to get the vectors between the port antenna, stub antenna, and bow antenna. These are done on epoch-to-epoch basis, so we get 3,600 records per hour. Logging 4 hours is a lot of data. And from these, on an epoch-to-epoch basis, we derive vessel heading, pitch, and roll. In addition, on the same 3 points, we produce precise point positions using TerraPOS. Again, epoch to epoch. And from these, we combine these positions with the vessel heading, pitch and roll, and thereby calibrating the sensors, gyro motion sensor, and verifying the GNSS systems. I'll show you some accuracies later on to show you how accurate it is. So basically, results and deliverables are the corrections to the vessel sensors and a full calibration report. Accuracy-wise, we need firm and solid mountings for the antennas. As you can see here, they're clamped very firmly to the vessel superstructure, and they're designed to be open to the skies. Or as you see on this picture here, you will get some obstructions on the vessel. You're never going to find a place in the vessel with totally open areas. There's always been something in the way, but it doesn't matter that much. Deliverables. We can normally deliver the final data within 36 hours. You might say 36 hours. Well, as you see later, we can process the gyro and motion sensor data in 30 minutes. But to produce the GNSS, we need to wait for the rapid orbits, and they're available at 1700 UTC for the previous day. So let's say that the data logged yesterday, the orbits available at 1700 UTC today. So anything we do today, the orbits available at 1700 UTC tomorrow, which is a silly time actually, because that's just when we've gone home from work. So we have to work overtime. Yeah, so we need a general clear view of the sky. But as on a vessel, you're not going to get that 100%. There will always be some obstructions. The dimensional control survey is very, very critical. So we've got the vessel coordinates in the XYZ system. And we need to maximize the baselines to improve the accuracy of the RTK processing. A typical baseline here, vessel speed 12 knots, log for 4 hours. You see the SD of the observations is 0.005 meters. 5 millimeters is the SD for that data set there. So the technique is very, very accurate. So let's look at some results. Back in 2010, stop the camera, when we were pioneering the technique, we did on one vessel, we did a traditional calibration and then did 3 dynamic calibrations around the world. Same vessel traveled from Romania to Indonesia and Australia. You see that comparing the results, the heading 0.13 minus, same for dynamic in Indonesia, a little bit difference for the dynamic in Romania, and the same in Australia, as is pitch roll and head and easting normally. So you can see that even when we pioneered the technique, we saw that the technique was working, and then went to work to market it and try and sell it into our customers. A second case study, this is done in Norway. You see where the antennas are. There's a lot of bad or noise around them. And what you can't see here is there's 2 large overhead cranes obstructing the signals as well. If we look at the processing, you see on the right there, that is a typical plot we expect to get from the data. And on the left is the plot we got from this set. As you can see, it's a lot less stable than expected. Same with the RTK processing fixed integers. We did manage to fix quite a few of the integers even with that noisy data set. You see the greens fixed, blue float, and reds not usable. So all the data was noisy. We managed to fix many of the integers, and as you'll see the results in a minute. again with the baseline quality, what we expect, what we got. Same with the PPP processing. And then at the end of the day, we did a traditional calibration at the same time. And when you compare the traditional calibration to the dynamic calibration with that noisy data set, you'll see the technique still proves that we've got a technique that works. Going on to projects then. Here, started in 2010 with 6 calibrations. 2011, it went up and up and up, and hit the peak in 2019, just before COVID, with 33 per year. For us, that's quite a lot of calibrations. And then we had COVID, and then it's gone back to picking up again. So we've done totally 314 dynamic calibrations in the 13 years. That's a lot of carbon saved with people flying around the world to do traditional calibrations. Companies, as this, I've kept them a secret. I'll show you who they are afterwards, but not in so much detail. But you see, some companies have done lots of calibrations. I can tell you company A and company C because they don't exist anymore. Company A is CDG and company C is Polarcus. What is surprising here is all these companies are seismic companies. There's no survey companies or construction companies using the technique whatsoever. Every calibration do is only for seismic clients. And there's a company today that's done 95 so far. I'll go back to a comment in 2013 from Equinor, who were startup at the time, which was quite a valid comment, that they were willing to accept the technique so long as there was a traditional survey done first, and we kept a log of the results comparing traditional against dynamic. And that is something we still do today. The guys here that do the processing, the 3 of them here, or 2 are here that do processing. We have a Word document and a spreadsheet we fill out after every calibration, which has the vessel history log over the whole time we've done the calibration. So some vessels have got logs for 13 years now. And it's been something we've done very, very pedantic based on that request. And then the final list is the companies that we've done calibrations for. As you see, they're all seismic companies. Only 2 of them don't exist today. So what improvements have we done? Well, back in 2010, we had to do everything manually. The conversion from raw data to Drynex was done using the manufactured converters, and it was time consuming. The RTK processing was still doing GraphNav then, but it had to be done 3 times, 1 for each baseline, again, manually. The PPP processing in TerraPOS, again, was done with 3 projects with 3 antennas, done manually. Then comes the difficult part, the calibration results. These are the actual RTK and PPP results were pasted into Excel. There were some macros in Excel. After we pasted in all the vessel sensor data, would take up to 20 minutes to run. And frequently, the projects would crash. So the technique was time consuming and prone to errors and required a very, very thorough QC. So at that time, the average time to process a calibration was 6 hours and 2 hours to QC it. So we're looking 8 hours of solid work to get the results. Luckily, things have gone forward. Today, the first improvement is command line interface. Every application we have, all the manufacturers' converters, TerraPause and GraphNav have a command line interface, allowing us to script the processing. So we developed an app which basically just calls these command line processes, processes results automatically, simplifies the QC, as has many self-checking controls and functions. Again, now we report directly from the application, so there's no more typing errors, and so the QC is fairly simple. You control the input and accept the output. And process time is good. If there's no data errors, the complete processing is done in 30 minutes, but which does work for the rapid over. So when we get data set in, we can process the RTK baselines in 15 to 20 minutes to confirm the data set's good, park it until the orbits are available, then we can do the full processing in 30 minutes. And PDF report then goes to the client. So this is the application. You see, you set up the different parameters at the top there. You confirm, you define which receiver you're using, what the right conversion should be, and you come to a processing page. Click off what boxes you want to process, hit process, and go get yourself a cup of coffee. When you come back from the coffee, everything's done and finished. Again, with the calibration processing itself, we input the geodetic data, offset, vessel description, sensor data, etc. Click process, and it'll run through the process, and in 3 or 4 minutes later, gives you the PDF report of the results. As I said, we've built in QC into the software. You'll see here that the observed is the baselines based on the computed results. The computed are the baselines based on the offsets we've measured. When you look at the difference, this confirms that the offsets input to the system are good because there's low errors and it's consistent with both the RTK and PPP processing. And then this is the results summary. You see that the CMSO is 0.41. That's just the alignment of the gyro to the sensor. But if you look at the SDs, 0.03, 0.03, 0.02, pitch roll 0.03, 0.03. The SDs on the DGSS processing 0.02 meters, 0.03, 0.03, 0.02, etc. Showing that the technique does give very, very good results, very, very accurate results. So, new future developments. Well, in recent years, we've implemented a dynamic offset computation. So if you move an antenna on a vessel, there's now no need to do another dimension control survey. We use the same technique. Here's the vessel. Here's the 3 points. Again, we divide heading, pitch, and roll based on the RTK processing. But now, in addition, at the same time, we've logged at the offset. Here we can then do the RTK processing to the new offset. And we can do a least squares match of that into the vessel reference frame and give you a new offset dynamically offshore. No need to get a surveyor to travel the world to do that. And this, as it's not dependent on the PPP processing, is done in 15 minutes. And it's just baseline processing. Going forward, we'd like to include RGNSS in the process here. That's something we're looking into. So we can do RGNSS for the people who don't know, are pods that go onto the seismic streamers and tailbuoys to give position at the front, at the end of the tailbuoy, and give position on the guns when you're shooting seismic work. So we've got a technique now developing to be able to do that dynamically. And in addition, we've got a point here for ROV sensors. We can do it. We can calibrate ROVs in the hangar by doing an extra dimension, but also before. But as I said, there's nobody with ROVs using this technique, so it's been put on ice. So we'll concentrate on the seismic side of things. That's where most of the customers are. Then challenges. It was still the wait of up to 17 hours for the precise orbit data. We do have a solution. Flugo has a lot of reference stations. We send corrections over the air. So we could store those corrections, then look the actual problem of, are we contaminating our processing by using a Flugo product in the process? But it will give us a full calibration much, much quicker. So I'll leave that open to the customer to decide. And the final challenge is that the data collection is outside of Flugo's control. We have detailed procedures for how to collect the data. Most vessels do a good job now, but if there are issues, then the problem resolution is slow because we're not there. We're having to send mails back and forth to the client vessel, asking questions and trying to resolve the issues. So to conclude then, I think we've proven that the accuracy is there. We can dynamically get the same, potentially better results than any traditional calibration due to the masses of data we're logging. It's flexible. The constraints imposed by traditional methodology are removed. Anytime, anywhere, we can do it. And as I said, the technique is well established now throughout the seismic industry. All the companies I showed were seismic companies. As such, there's no construction or survey companies using the technique today as such. And finally, after many, many battles with big oil companies, Shell, Woodside, Petrobras is still ongoing. We do have energy company approval from the majority of energy companies which accept this technique now to be able to calibrate their vessels. With that, I'll open the floor up to questions. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Sure.
Yeah, I think there will be quite a few of us in this room will probably tell you that the old method of travelling around the world with a large footprint was a lot more fun.
Well, I can tell you, ask my surveyors, ask her, Vega, and Stuart, they'd agree with you.
Yeah, it was awesome.
They like travelling the world as well.
The obvious question from me, and I'll put it out for others, is why have traditional survey companies not taken this on board? I mean, I assume this is all fixed installations. This is just when a vessel comes alongside, then it's you press and log data. So
Yeah.
why would traditional survey companies, of which there are numerous ones, why have they not taken this on? I assume you know the answer to that.
I don't, because Flugo is a traditional company as well, and we don't use it.
But is it not because we traditional survey companies have traditional surveyors and then they can just go out and do that?
Yeah, I think, plus the mobilisation times for traditional surveys are a lot longer because you've got things to do, but I would assume there are times at which you could use a technique.
But there's a premium to pay, of course, to have the equipment on board the whole time.
Yeah, could it be that the timeline to get the orbit data is a problem for the survey companies? Because maybe you're going out to do a multi-beam calibration or stuff like that and need the data more rapidly.
But if you're going to do if you're going to get with your log right next to it yourself and send it into one of the processing houses to get it processed, you get the same delay. But the survey companies are probably more interested in the sensor calibrations, and they're instantaneous: gyro, heading, motion, etc. But the DGNSS part of it's you're locked You got that 17 hours no matter what, unless we log fugal corrections, which is something we're considering. And us.
I don't, the first question is, who's that guy on the picture?
That's me a few years ago.
Isn't it correct to say that the main driver for this kind of method was initially that the seismic vessel was actually steaming ahead on a constant speed, constant heading, and using that time originally to deploy all the rest of the gear. So this is just a kind of an add-on to the existing activity, and the vessel is not, well, basically in this process, not gaining anything really.
No, that's true. That's probably why they've taken it on.
And of course, that, as was mentioned here, for the traditional survey vessel, they are not normally doing this exercise. So this would have been a kind of an additional exercise in that process.
But I still see cases where traditional vessels surveying construction could have using technique. Yeah.
Just a follow-up. Do you know for sure that the survey contractors don't use a similar technique derived using their own software or their own techniques?
Potentially, but we've talked to a few. I know Deep Ocean uses the Java to receive on their vessels for an online. So there are other vessels using it, but we've talked to quite a few companies about the technique, and they've said no, we do it traditionally. But yeah, there are exceptions.
Question from, I'm working for Kongsberg, and of course, multi-beam and high-path calibrations. That's something that we do, not we anymore, but we have companies doing that for us. Is it possible to combine or to do this in a non-traditional way? I think we have our procedures, of course, but what do you think?
But USBL calibration, they're done in real time, aren't you? You're logging data and you get the results. You log data and you process in the field. The results are available instantaneously. So the only thing is you have to calibrate the gyro motion sensor before. And I mean, if the data is logged, sent into us right before the calibration starts, and or competitors.
Yeah, high-path is
It could be
maybe
processed.
easier, but what about multi-beams? Okay, we can talk about this.
It depends whether it's ROV-based multi-beam or vessel-based.
Vessel-based.
Again, you calibrate the vessel sensors before you do the multi-beam calibration. So
But you have to do this calibration first and then do the EchoSonar afterwards.
yeah, that's the. I suppose, if you want to post-process, you could log data simultaneously and post-process. First the vessel motion, then put those corrections into the post-processing of the other sensors.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Ricardo from us. John, very nice presentation.
Thank you.
I'm just curious here to think a bit outside the box. In terms of the purpose for measuring the attitude and the position of the vessels, what is the actual purpose for, and how frequent do you do this in the vessel? Let's say you have a new antenna in the vessel, or is there any requirements from the companies to check the positioning?
It depends on, the requirements, Rolf could probably correct me if I'm wrong, but the requirements for seismic companies are client-based. They may require when you use vessels from area A to area B, they will require a calibration close to area B before you start working. And if the vessel doesn't have to enter port, it can do it on the way in transit. But I see a lot of vessels as well just say, well, we do these calibrations twice a year and that's it. So it's all very much end user based. What do the energy company want? What do they specify?
Understood.
Thank you very much, John.
Okay,
Much appreciated.
thank you.
very much, John. Excellent. We're going to move on to the next presentation, which is, I'll explain a little bit about this one just to set the scene, because I think this is going to be a very interesting presentation. I have seen it, so I can vouch for that. But what we wanted to really do this evening, and originally we had Derek Jardine and a guy called Matt Sims, who were going to present just basically what kind of projects we do offshore and what kind of survey it actually involves, because it's actually quite difficult to get that across to students, new people who might be curious about joining the industry. What is it we actually do offshore in these projects, which is survey related? So people come in with land surveying or hydrographic survey backgrounds, and when they get offshore, it's very different, but it's still, there is the fundamentals of survey that ensure that these projects start from A and finish at Z. The survey is fundamental across the board. And with this project, I think this is a very good one. This is a DOF project. So, Armand, if you'd like to come forward, this has got some very complex survey in it as well as some very basic survey. So, I will leave Armand to tell you all about it, and then we'll take some questions at the end. So, thank you very much, Armand.
Yes, thanks. My name is Armin Hovland. I joined off in August as a project surveyor. Prior to that, I went straight from, I guess you're from land walling as well. So land walling, did 2 years of DIMCON, and then I went straight offshore. After a while, it was time to try something new, so I went onshore and started there in August, and I did. DOF had just signed this project, and I was quite certain that at least they're not going to dump that on me. But I was wrong there. I should say I'm the project surveyor for it, but we are the two of us tending the project from survey. So, but I do the day-to-day business of it. But this is the hub area of the project. It's between straight through Mauritania and Senegal. So the maritime border actually goes straight through there. So the two countries, it was discovered in 2016. BP, they're not the only stakeholder in the field, but they are the operator. And so they discovered in 2016, and in 2018, Mauritania and Senegal agreed on, okay, let's go 50-50. So it's fairly quick, actually, given the size of the field. They estimate 425 billion cubics of gas they can recover. DOF, we're contracted, BP is the stakeholder in the company, and we are contracted by Saipem. BP contracted Saipem, so we're a bit further down the line. And pretty much we're hired to do all the survey tasks for Saipem. Whatever we can do for them, they'll send our way. Field is divided in 3. The wells are quite far out, about 120 kilometers from the coast. It's 2,850 meters depth, so it's some of the deepest projects that have been in Africa for now. I'm not sure if it's the deepest, but it's among the top there. Then the FPSO is located much closer to shore, not so deep. And then there's the hub area where the gas gets exported by vessel. So our vessel is then split into 3 places where it will work. We estimate the contract, I think we estimate to stay in the project throughout most of 2024, if not through the whole. Depends on how things move along. So this is a good picture explaining the field. As you can see, the deep area, and then the gas gets transported through flow lines up to the FPSO, and then from FPSO into the hub area, where the gas, where vessels will come and pick up the gas. So this shows a bit more of the intricacy on the subsea. Not to scale, of course, but so we have I believe it's a bit over 200 kilometers of pipeline. We're waiting for some of it to be installed and then for some of it to be surveyed, tested. So yeah, there's also protection, cathodic protection surveys to be done as well. So yeah, so we have quite a lot of work ahead of us. This is the hub area. I'm not sure if you can see so well here. There's a blue line cutting straight through. That's the maritime border. So we're still waiting for, in here is coming the FLNG rig for liquefying the gas. It's going to be hooked up and we'll be positioning that. And then on the outside, that's where the LNG vessels will come to pick up the gas. Yeah, this is our vessel that we have down there, Skilltrade. Some of you may know her from previous. She's been around for quite a while now. Proven herself, I would say. For now, yeah, on the picture, the main deck is quite empty, but it is quite full during now, like now. I'm not sure if you can fit a garbage bin in there if you tried. Yeah, so currently we have 17 spool metrologies ahead of us. 4 of them are completed, at least. Yeah, and we also had the installation of FPSO at the LBL array at the FPSO area. We've done post-hydrotest survey. We started, we're not completed yet. We have outer straightness survey for pipeline. And then we're also doing more general positioning during installation of different subsea assets with various requirements to accuracy. We will also be, when we hook up the FLNG vessel, it's quite close to the hub and BP is quite cautious about work close to there. So it's actually quite a lot of survey work going into how we're going to position during the hookup. And especially in regards to redundancy, if loss of GPS or USBL. Also, there are other fields in the vessels in the field, and all of their work gets sent to the ASOG, and ASOG then updates the seabed map for that area, and also the register of which assets it is installed and when it is installed. So anything survey related goes to ASOG. Yeah, I'm not going to mention all the survey sensors we have on board, but I have, we're running with a Fugro GNSX. So someone can approve of that. Heading-wise, we're running with we have dual CPAP, Kongsberg MRU5 for the motion, and we also have HITAP 502 for USBL positioning. All the ROVs now, they're coming with Sprint Nav as standard ROV gyro. So in this project, normally we would prefer to have our own survey gyro, but since ROV ordered a survey gyro for themselves, we use theirs. So we can share. For the LBL work, we're using Sondyne Fusion, and metrology, we use our own in-house software, which is proven itself over time, and yeah. Also, anything survey is then, we run with the INS as a standard, but we also post-process anything that's gathered. It's not on the picture, but we also have handheld motion sensors for the metrology survey and handheld depth sensors for taking depths of the structures. You can see here, the 2 multi-beams. Since the project is so long and it had so much survey work, we've managed to persuade the company to purchase some new ones. So we went for the Norbit B44. And so far we've been quite happy. Yeah. The core crew, we have, given the amount of metrologies, we have 5 people on board as a core crew. There's 1 party chief, 2 onliners, 1 on each shift, and then there's the 2 LBL engineers that are permanent crew on board. This is to deal with the constant, sometimes the LBL metrologies come quite thick and fast, and you do need 2 LBL engineers ready. And they've had their hands quite full during Christmas. So yeah, it's been, at first I thought, oh wow, we get 5, but it's been necessary throughout the project. when needed, we get to have 2 data processors and a geo on board. And they've actually been needed since day one of the project in November. So we didn't think we would need them until at a later stage, but so far they've been since day one, and it looks like we're gonna need them for quite a while going forward as well. Whenever we can, we try to have trainees on board as well. It's a good project for survey trainees to learn. It's various tasks, there's a lot of equipment. We've had tech trainees on board, we've had online trainees on board, and I think they've had good use of going there. It's been educational for them. Yeah, so I'll just go through some of the challenges we've had. It was quite a short time from contract award. Everyone's happy, we have a kickoff meeting, yes, we want a big project. But then there's all the work that needs to get planning and procedures needs to be made. I think the last procedure was agreed upon, then the vessel was almost in field. So it was quite hectic. There's deep water, so it doesn't allow much for, you need to plan your dives very carefully and the equipment you want to deploy. If you have to go up again, it's like a half a shift lost if we do that. And no one's very happy about that. So I think the rule is if you can't find time to do it right, you will find time to do it twice. And we try to avoid. But yeah, the low visibility, it's in the shallow area. So, at least it's not deep, but it's proven itself to be very difficult to work in. Yeah, we're not the only vessel in the field. So sometimes you get called to move off. Depends who's got the best day rate. So sometimes we send others away and sometimes we get sent away. It's a give and take. Then there's the competence. We have a core crew of 5. So even if they were back to back, that absorbs 10 people out of the DOF crew, which is quite a lot. And then to manage to map the need you have for competence, it takes quite a bit of we had to do a lot of training in-house and asking agencies, what can you give us? Who do you have? And then there's one thing I think we're not the only ones who've noticed, is the lead time on equipment. Normally when we put the order, we would like it right away, and then someone, okay, we'll have it in 5 weeks. And I was like, oh, I wanted it yesterday. So it's been a bit of a challenge for us, and we need to plan for more equipment, but there's a cost to that as well. So cost benefit, and you have to persuade the right people to buy enough equipment. So there you have today, these are the vessels in field. Put us in the DOF 1, we're the main one, if you ask DOF. And then there's the pipe layer here, Pioneering Spirit. I suspect she has a better day rate than us, because sometimes we have to move for her. There's also the Saipem 3000, so we work for Saipem, and Saipem it's their vessel, so they kind of take priority. There's the Oceanic. She's the support vessel for the Pioneering Spirit. There's one supply vessel in the field. She supplies us with. We do not go to port. I'm not sure if we plan to not go to port anytime soon. So we get all our supplies straight to the field. There's no port calls so far in the project. Then there's the 2 key vessels, everyone's favorite, crew change vessel. These are a sight for sore eyes on crew change day when they come. Yeah. So the poor visibility. In the shallow water, this is what you can see from the ROV control room. And this is what we want to see, we need to see. So we had 3 metrologies in the poor visibility, all of them with very tight tolerances. Like you need to place the compounds into the receptacle. This is machine surface, so that fits exactly. And you need to do it 3 times to prove that you can repeat it. And when you have that visibility, it takes time. So before project, we set aside 1 day. So, okay, poor visibility, we have 1 day for the metrology. Took us 4 days. So it was a lesson learned. But, such is life. Yeah, so as mentioned, the Metro software. So once you've had like 4 days of collecting data, it is quite intense and it has to be right. With metrologies, there is no room for error. The error is absorbed by everyone else. So we need to be painstakingly accurate. So we have the DOF Metro software. Every data gets pulled in as it's collected. And then once you complete it, you get an instant report. And client's happy normally. So on these spool routes, we even have to add, normally we just measure with the depth sensor along the route to get the depth. The client also want a multi-beam on top of that. So they ask and we try to say yes. Ensuring the right competence. So once we got the project, again, kick off, everyone's happy. And then it's like, okay, who do we have who can do this? And then people have holidays, whatever, and we need to make sure we have the right people available at the right time. So we set up a training center in Aberdeen. It's online. People log in from home. Because once they've done 4 weeks offshore and we ask them to come to the office, they're not really interested. So we try to make sure that they can train from home then at least. And also we have online, we have various training sessions they can do online and complete. So here you can see when we bought the Norbits, we also got a course. So it's an engineer from Norbit keeping a course in-house in Aberdeen. This was also live streamed on Teams, and we then have the video as well, which any employee can go in and watch. This is from Metro training, down to the right there. And then the offliners had some training on this one. It's about eventing, I think. So it is quite crucial for us. We need to follow up that they do the training before they go. And then if they feel they lack training, they need to tell us so we can address that in good time before the departure date. So what do we need when we land this through? So the onliner, he needs to have a bit of geometric competence. He should know a bit of hydrographics. He needs to know the basic technical. We expect him to know as well, he or she. And then there's quite a few sensors. They're all very great by themselves, but to make them all work together, it's actually quite a bit of a task sometimes. It can be a lot of head scratching. But we do expect that the onliner should be able to do that. And then next to him sits the LBL engineer, who we also sometimes use as survey tech. So they need to have we expect full competence on LBL array installation, calibration of the LBL array. We also expect them to do metrology data collection. We can give them a course in Metro, and then we expect quite a lot of them as well. On top of that, they need to make sure inventory and the survey gear works. So data processors, they process the data, post-processing they need to know, and also sometimes we're not sure what's wrong with the sensor. They have to go through the log data, and they're actually quite good at it to find out what's causing a problem. The geo interprets the collected data, especially if we have sub-bottom or whatever. Same with they also do eventing of the pipeline. So it's a lot of knowledge that these guys need. You have 5 people, you have 5 seats you need to fill, and there's a lot of knowledge that these 5 people need to fill up together. Then there's the head honcho, party chief. He's the overall responsibility for everything. Everything that goes wrong, this party chief needs to answer to. He is the contact point. When the client's not happy, he goes to party chief. And then party chief has to make sure all the admin work is up to date. If he falls behind, it gets noticed pretty quick. And then when you have all the poor visibility and clients asking, why are you so slow? When am I getting my report? Can you redo this report while you make my other report? Then they need to keep calm. It's not for everyone. It takes a bit of experience, but so far we've been quite lucky at we had some really good guys on board, and they managed to work well with the client. So yeah, that's. I think that was it for me on the.
I don't have any questions because we live and breathe this project on a daily basis. But I think it's a really good presentation. I really enjoyed that because that really kind of summarizes exactly how complex it can be for all the people on board. You say that 5-man team, and so you really do need to be a jack of all trades and a master of them at the same time as well. So I guess all of this as well, everyone's got to get on well because it's a bit of a boiling pot as well, you know, for there's a lot of stress and you've got to know your stuff. So yeah, fools get found out pretty quickly.
Takes one bad apple.
One bad apple, yeah, exactly. I was going to ask a quick question of this side of the room. Maybe do you actually know what a metrology is? Go for it. Because I think it's quite applicable to these guys in some respects because it comes from a land survey background.
Well, you should all know metrology. It's without the E, methodology. So it's quite a fine, accurate measurement, subsea. And we can't achieve that with USBL. So the best way to explain, you have the oil well where the gas where the gas is coming up. And the pipe layer, you can't put the pipe exactly to the, like you're not going to land it exactly at the well. So we put a spool piece in between. So if you imagine like your garden hose at home, if you don't put the hose perfectly in, you're going to have water splashing everywhere. And this is high pressure gas, so it will go everywhere. That's why you need to have quite accurate piece that just lands perfectly between your well and the pipeline. And USBL can't give you that accuracy, so you need to put down long baseline compacts on the seabed. So between the array, you have quite a high accuracy, and then you position your ROV. It's quite accurate positioned in between, inside the box. And then for the flanges, we have the handheld depth sensor and the handheld gyro to measure the angle of the flange, like how much it goes this way, this pitch and roll. I'm not sure if you know pitch and roll or you'll learn that eventually. But yeah, so there's a lot of accuracy work going into it, and it has. You cannot make the spool until you've done the metrology. So very often, in our case, BP will say, "Our guys are ready we're ready to make the spool. We just need your data. Can you give it to us now?" Yesterday, and then again with the poor visibility, you need to be right when you do it. There's no room for error. I hope that explains some of it.
Thank you, Oliver.
At the start of your presentation, you said you're doing cathodic protection measurements.
Yeah.
Is that for the long pipelines, right?
It's for it's for all the assets.
Okay. How do you do that?
We're still discussing with Saipem how to do it.
Okay.
We know we want to do it, but we haven't agreed on the method yet.
Okay.
Do you have a way to do it, do you? By any chance? They do.
I would like to present something, but we're not sure.
I think as long as the price is right, it's the magic word. Good.
Do I need a microphone?
Yes, you do. You may as well say it.
Yeah. Are you only performing survey work, or are you also acting as a by construction vessel, installing the spools, tie-ins, and so forth?
Yeah,
For the vessel itself.
Yeah, we do. It's a bit of engineering on board as well, but I wasn't going to bore you with that in this venue. So yeah, there is quite a bit of engineering work, but I would say survey is the red thread through the whole project. So yeah.
Okay.
And then,
Just curious.
no, it's
Very good. That comes back to what I said. John's got a question. Whereabouts surveys vital for them? Not a lot of people offshore really know what we do, but it's vital to operation.
Yeah, thank you. Very good presentation.
thanks.
But, as we know, on this sort of project, the team makes or breaks it. And you've got the ideal way of getting trainees out there. But with these competences you need, how many people do you find with them already, and how much training do you have to do?
Good question. Well, DOF haven't hired that many since I arrived. But we have actually, Stuart can probably answer this better than me, but he's quite happy though. We've been approached by quite good experienced people who want to work with DOF, and they know what DOF stands for. So, but we do try to take on a bit of new blood as well, because I would say some departments we're reaching a bit high average age, and it's a bit time for a refill on the bottom, so there's a time for a handover and, what do you say, experience handover. So, but yeah, it's a bit hard to find exactly what you want, but so that's why we have to do a bit of in-house training. So we have to look at what we got, and most of them are very clever, just need the right training, but we need the time to do the right training as well. So
I think anyone who's worked at DOF will appreciate the fact that there's an incredible strength in depth. It's like Manchester City in some respects. There are a lot of very good people at DOF. I would say that the biggest challenge with this project is that this is a one-off project for DOF. We won't be doing it next year. So how do you know that you're going to have those 5 or those 8 people who can do exactly this project when next year it disappears and we're doing something different that doesn't marry with the same characteristics? That's why I think DOF, if we want to fly the DOF flag tonight, which I have no problem with, that's why we've got so many good people, because they've been exposed to lots of different projects, much like this, through the years, but you'll never get a project that's exactly like this one again. It'll be a different flavour next year. So, it's challenging though to manage it for sure. But we took on one of your guys, Jürgen. He's been on this twice now, and he loves it. He's had a fantastic time. But we've made sure we treated him right as well. We don't want to throw people in at the deep end, because then they'll just won't see him again.
I can say for Jürgen's case, he went down first as a trainee, so he sat next to the onliner. Or he probably got to sit in the chair as well, but he had someone there supervising him. So I think that was for the 2 first weeks, and then Jürgen was on his own, but then he was fine. He did quite well. Everyone was happy. So it is 140 beds on board, and for now I think we're just around 100 on POB. So there is room for trainees. So yeah, and we try to use that room as well. We've had survey tech trainees on board as well. They've done really well. So
yeah, these kind of projects where there's a lot of people, a lot of knowledge, are a really good foundation for anyone who can kind of go through for the first time. There's a lot to take on board. It's a lot of fun. Also, Julian's here. Okay. Okay, Ricardo's got a question now. I think we'll take a break.
Yes, very short question before we go for a break. Quick one. We have students here. They are doing geomatics, land surveying, about to finish, most of them, I guess. From all these 4 positions, of course, not party chief, where do you see them as the best way for them to get into the hydrographic surveyor competence?
I would say just if you get in, we'll probably send you as an onliner first, and then just see what you like, what you give us a bit of feedback. If you want to do LBL or do metrology, we're not going to stop you. So I would say the same with data processing. Once you're in, we're quite open to let you learn pretty much anything. So it just takes time to learn. Like, we don't expect anyone to come straight from Högskolan and expect them to rule any of these roles. Just once you get in, see what you're interested in. We're not going to stop you, so I can say that. Even for, I would say, survey tech as well. If you're a bit technical minded, you'd be quite surprised the backgrounds of some really good onliners, some really good data processors, and then you hear their background, and it's not that, maybe not be what you expected. So as long as you're still willing to learn, don't stop learning just because you left school. We don't do many exams, but we still like you to develop.
All right, thank you very much.
Hope that answers.
Cool. Thank you. We can talk about this project for days. So thank you very much. Okay, I think you can do it. Right, we're going to have a half-hour break. We're actually pretty much on schedule, so yeah, just there's loads of food. Please go and have yourselves, and we'll meet back here in 20 minutes or so. there's two more presentations to conclude for this evening, and they're absolutely worth sitting down and enjoying. All right, I think we'll get started. So this is a privilege for me to introduce you, Julian. Thank you very much. And another reason for having this, or asking Julian to do this, is again to kind of appeal to you guys and show you what can be done from anyone who has a land survey background. So Julian, over to you.
Yeah, good evening. I'm Julian Bell, and I work in the survey department at Equinor. I did, however, used to be a student. This is something threw together when Stu asked me to do something, and it's basically a description of an operation I was involved with last year. And it's aimed very much at the students. I remember when I was at university, we were all bamboozled by the terminology and what was going on out there. I mean, we knew our geography, we knew maths, we could count, add up, measure things, but the words they used were just, through us. So this is I want to use that again, please. Yeah, so good. So a bit of the background to this. It's a heavy lift barge. It was the job was to go out and deploy a couple of jackets and a topside, and make sure that they were put in the right place and they were the right way up, and that kind of thing. But really heavy. As the surveyor, it's part of a large team. We're an almost insignificant part of such a team. There's a lot of engineering design goes on, a lot of analysis beforehand. We go out on board, and as a kind of a positioning surveyor, you're just part of a massive team. Met Ocean, like I say, geotechnics, grouting, all manner of different people on board, working together to get a job done. So some of the survey-related activities, some of the survey-related activities started onshore with DIMCON, dimensional control of the jackets and topsides, and also DIMCON on the lift barge itself, in order to determine the offsets of things of important equipment and that kind of thing. We also did some ROV surveys, some small ROV surveys around the corner of each leg, pre-deployment, and long periods of waiting for a surveyor in this operation when they're doing the grouting and other operations, but long days during the actual survey bits. So during the set down of the jackets, during the piling, there was just level surveys that were done during the piling on each leg. has installed surveys for the final position and attitude and heading. Further survey work during the cut-off of the piles, and then finally an as-built position once all the piling and grouting was finished. So other survey activities involved the anchor running and of course mobilising all the equipment on the top side and putting that in. So we're talking quite large structures. As always, safety is a major priority in all these operations, safety first. So one thing that you've got to be prepared for in this kind of operation is this thing, the basket. So you get lifted from here over to there in all kinds of weather. So it's quite fun to do, if you're allowed. So there's a lot more going on deck here than on a normal survey vessel. Hive of activity, cranes, and just a lot more people running around on deck, welding and preparing things. Survey team consisted of 3 people, 2 surveyors and a party chief, the boss. And at times that didn't seem like enough, especially during the start when they're getting set up ready to go, and then a bit of pressure on. So some people will recognise some of these. It was meant to be anonymous, but basically the equipment consisted of 2 GNSS systems for both position and the heading, a few octans, heading unit, and an MRU again for attitude, and 2 total stations. So that was on the barge itself. On the jacket and top sides, we had a similar setup to this, a gyro box, a GNS box with gyro, and prisms and so on. So here's a picture of the prisms there and there. I don't have a picture with the GNSS antennas here. I think I've got one later. So we basically got the total station set up on the stern of the lift barge, looking at these prisms and generating a position from that as a backup, a contingency to the GNSS antennas also installed. That's you might see why in a little while. Big risk to them getting smacked about. So here's an actual surveyor with a total station getting set up. So he aligns the total station with the barge reference frame, and then he's good to go. So we know we get the position of where the total station is. He measures ranges and bearings of the prism, and hey presto, we know where the jacket is, even though it should be quite visible. One of the bits of kit we use on here is the right angle eyepiece. Obviously due to the extreme vertical angles involved. There was only one on board, and these guys are hanging over the stern, fiddling around with this, taking it on and off, and you just think, if they drop it, it's gone, you know? And there were spares of everything, but not that right angle eyepiece. So these gyro boxes, battery powered. You're getting a heading between 2 GNSS antennas, which proved slightly more trustworthy than the octans heading, and something very similar installed on the anchor handlers. So a little bit more, try and go into things and do a little bit more detail here. I haven't taken the time of this, by the way, so I have no idea how long this talk lasts. DIMCON on the barge. On board we estimated at 20 mil, and checks looking around, checks on that proved about right, and the error budget said 2 nil. So a bit of a mismatch there. They measured in the base plate. Drawing the dim on the base plate is this thing here. So they've got a lip on that base plate, which they've shoved the gyro up against to line it up. So you've got to know the angle of that lip there in the reference frame of the jacket. And obviously it's a very short baseline, so the accuracy could be a bit reduced there. We ended up with a 0.2 meter bust in heights between the heights measured by the jacket and the ones measured by the prisms. And we could think that part of that could well be a small pitch error on the barge and the enormous offsets. We're talking, I can't remember how long that thing was. Getting on 100 meters, I think the offset was from Singapore. The ROVs used USBL positioning. I'm not going to go into that today. It was basically used for depth checks to make sure that everything was as expected and to check that there was nothing unexpected on the seabed to hinder the leg penetration. We had a GNSS Wolf tide solution going on, fairly depth control, but that wasn't terribly important at this stage, and it's a whole presentation in itself. So I'm going to just pop over that. We also use the ROV as to do a post survey to document the final situation around the legs. That was just basically a video camera on some thrusters. During this set down, obviously you have to keep an eye on the GNSS quality, and that can really go to hell quite quickly because there's these 2 massive cranes waving around, lifting stuff, jackets, blocking the skyline. So it could, you have to keep quite a good eye on what's going on there. And of course, right at the lifting and moving and blocking the view of the sky, just at the most critical moment when you're doing the lifting. And so, oh, is it in the right place? Is it in the right place? Well, we don't know yet because GNS has stopped working. And that could happen on the jacket or the barge or both. The total stations are kind of a backup against that. So hoping that if you lose one, then the total stations will still keep you on track. But of course, once the thing's in place, then everything works fine again. So there's comparisons between multiple GNSS systems and comparisons between the GNSS systems on the jacket and the positions derived by the total stations. All kinds of heading comparisons and so on to ensure that everything was working fine. We need to do that, of course, because things can happen. The GNSS issue is one thing. We're using a GNSS-derived heading as well for some of the systems. The things can get knocked and move, so you really need to have a bit of extra information. And this is the jacket installed here with the piles. This is after piling with the legs cut. So you might remember that picture of that base plate that's there somewhere. And the surveyors obviously were getting sent out to go here and document the level of the jacket, the attitude, how wonky it was. Not just the jacket itself, but also checks on how level the leg cuts were. Some of this was done by the engineering contractor, and some of it by the survey guys. And then they issue an as-built report on completion. So once the jacket was down, oh no, sorry, I'm jumping ahead here. Once the jacket was down, we then needed to install the top side. It's quite shallow water, and basically they couldn't position themselves. They did the jacket installation on DP, dynamic positioning, but they couldn't do the dynamic positioning for the topside installation because it was too heavy and they had to bunker down, and basically everything was too close to the seabed. So they anchored up to ensure their positioning. Pointed out the GNSS box which was installed on the on each anchor handler, and then it was Wi-Fi comms. Is the antenna here to the gyro box heading the GNSS box on the anchor handler, and the surveyors didn't have to actually go on board. They just could monitor what was going on by the Wi-Fi. So we're quite slack tolerances, 5 meters tolerance, but there was nothing on the seabed here, but in many situations there would be a maze of cables and pipelines, and you really have to be careful about where you put your anchors down to not break anything. So here's a picture of an anchor handler with an anchor. Yeah, and a barge with a jacket. So the anchors obviously are on the lift barge itself. They come really close in, and drop the anchor down, and away they go. A lot of vessels involved. You know, there's vessels towing these barges. I can't remember how many. I think we're up to four anchor handlers at one point. Yeah, so now the topside's going in, the business end of the structure, and this was also monitored during the installation. If you look closely there, we've got a prism there, and there was one on the side we can't see, and we monitored both of those with 2 total stations mounted on the stern. And obviously, data is logged the whole time. The final results were based on what was logged on the jacket itself. I mentioned this already, that the cranes and other things did not help the GNSS, so we had to have backup sources. Of course, a gratuitous bird shot for those who know me, watching like a hawk. This sparrowhawk did land on the barge during the operation. So once everything had settled, they went on board and did a new levelling survey of the top side, and shown that the octans was off by a bit. They had a setup on the bridge on the crane barge, but they also did a smart thing and replicated everything down in a container right on the stern, so they could, because that's where everything happened basically. The barge superintendent was there during the critical times. He stood there, he sat in here and directed operations with assistance from the surveyors who could run in and out like madmen to the theodolites and so on. So we were ballasted quite a way down. That was the echo sounder from the barge. Wasn't much left to go on. So a few concepts. This is my pet hobby horse, so we could do a presentation or 3 about this slide alone. But I'm going to try and keep it short, very short. In order to meet the tolerances, they had to set up an error budget to find out what was the expectation of the position accuracy, heading accuracy, pitch and roll accuracy. And here, the tolerances in this case were quite slack, so they were allowed half a degree of tilt, a degree on the heading, and 2 meters on position. So should be quite straightforward to meet. A few of the specs. They had a 2 centimeter on the surface positioning, 4 centimeters on the height, and the start pack heading, the heading between the GNSS, in other words, 0.1 of a degree. That's actually quite not so bad enough. estimate, half a degree, they said, in the dynamic environment. That added it quite nicely. But on top of all this, there's a whole load of other stuff, like the offsets. I mean, these seem quite good, 1.1 of a degree, but then if you're going over 100 meters, all adds up and multiplies really quite quickly, because this is obviously where it is, not where the theodolite is, and definitely not where the topside or jacket is, if it's the one on the barge, for example. But we've got very good agreement, but important to get this right, so you know what to expect and say, well, was it good enough or is it not good enough? A lot of it's based on experience and these error budgets. And there was a number of mismatches in this particular error budget, which I haven't presented. So we had the octans 0.3 of a degree off, and it might have been reading wrong, it might have not been calibrated quite right, it might have been knocked. All kinds of things can make it do that. The octans roll 0.3 of a degree, that was rather higher than we would have expected compared to leveling. Again, could have been knocked, could have been not calibrated quite correctly. But that's why we have the leveling and the total stations as a check. You can always, you're always going to get a result, and not just a result, but be able to put a quality on that result. And the pitch was a lot better. We also got Rhinex data, which is raw GNSS signals. They then got post-processed. Bit of a delay on that due to the way it works. Basically, you need to download a fMRI from a website or a server, and that takes a good 24 hours before it's even available. But it's a nice check to have after the event to say, well, was my GNSS working right? Do I get the same when I post-process the Rhinex data as I did in the live operation? Yeah, it's quite important when we're able to spot the noise, bias from noise. So is it an error, a small residual systematic error, or is it just random noise? And the effective noise will be reduced by more observations, but the bias won't be. Should be quite simple to remember that, but it's often forgotten. So a few things to look out for. Luckily, the survey contractor employed a kind of new technology for self-writing GNSS antenna mounts. So they could go, 1 minute they would look like that, they've been knocked and not pointing up anymore. And the next time you turn around, they were magically pointing upright. No, nothing got knocked, nothing moved. Okay, so that of course may invalidate your DIMCON or a calibration you might have done. And again, hence the need for redundant systems. We had two total stations, as I mentioned, mounted on the stern, each looking at a prism, and of course then you could get a heading from those as well. Shadowing and multipath from cranes. Didn't happen all the time, but at least a couple of the lifts we did on this job, we got hit by that and had to do multiple attempts at the as-built documentation. But comes to the Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi comes to the Wi-Fi antenna to communicate with the anchor handlers. They had to install an extra one to ensure enough line of sight around the vessel to reach all the necessary places. Because they suddenly found that we lost comms with a couple of anchor handlers. GNSS offsets, often the DIMCON will measure to the point on which you mount it, and then they don't take the distance from there to the phase center. So you've got, I don't know, 6-7 centimeters there in practice. Another thing to think about was the battery life for the systems mounted on the jackets on the top side. Only good for 18 hours. Suddenly the weather comes up, there's some other problem, there's some delay, system's dead just when you want to go on board. So you've got to really keep an eye on how long it's been on for. And it would often go down, and you know, if it goes down when the weather's bad, you can't get over on the basket. So there's a few things to keep an eye on. I did that already. Aero budgets, we've been through most of this. I see time's running out fast here. Our next planning, I've mentioned all of these things. Now we had a DTM, the seabed was also useful at times. Some extra things to think about, extra measurements that could have been taken were useful for documenting the engineering side of things, centre power to centre power distances, for example, and using land survey levelling on the top side instead of a dumpy level. The modern CAL report was released moments before we lifted, so it was very last minute to be able to get that out. It's always that way in these situations, a lot of pressure. But if we've seen the results during the calibration process, mobilisation process, so we're quite confident that everything was okay. And to pre-install the GNSS cables on the top side would have saved quite a bit of time as well. And at the end of the day, that was the job done, the result. Everything in place and the right way up, right way round, and we're all very happy. Those rigging platforms are taken off afterwards, and that's finished up. Any questions?
All right, we've got many questions. I've just got one. That was the final result. Was that oil and gas, or was that a?
Yes.
Okay. I was just going to say, or ask you basically, how much similarity is there then between oil and gas and then renewables now as you're putting in wind farms?
Well, this is the same thing. Yeah. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what that was. That was a jacket with a top side. It happens in both.
Yeah. So
both industries are both the same, and the techniques are obviously near identical. Yeah.
Okay, so just wanted to show that basically it's survey transitions both industries.
And it was, this was a random thing I happened to just have on my laptop.
Don't say that.
And no, sorry, I spent hours preparing this particular thing. But I thought I'd keep the land survey side of things in because it would perhaps have more relevance to students. They know they've seen one, and used one. And so there's kind of a quasi world like this. Not the only situation where total stations are used offshore. Repositioning is another one. So it's a bit of offshore and a bit of onshore combined.
Julian, thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, the blinding lines.
I wonder if you could elaborate a little bit around the background or the reasoning for the need for this accuracy when you install the jacket.
Well, yeah, I can answer at least that in part.
Well, on the side of the room,
the quick answer is the engineers tell us this. That's what the engineers said. I did what I was told. Now, part of it is this extremely tight tolerances for some of the cables which are made already. When you're thinking about pulling in a month, a lot of the things are made to measure, so it's got to go in the right place to meet the tolerances of everything that's going in afterwards. Is one of them, probably the main one.
The prefabrication.
Yeah, the prefabrication. Yeah, and the things that go in afterwards is also prefabricated. So the lengths have got to be right, and if they don't match, then they have to make new bits put in.
Yeah, it's good that it fits at the end.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, thanks for a great presentation, Julian. It's John.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. I appreciate need all the help I can get here. Yeah?
Talking about the genesis positioning, I won't say too much because I know who did it.
Really, John.
But as lessons learned, there's always lessons to learn in the industry. Did you ever consider an RTK solution offer a well-placed antenna? Because the PPP solutions are very, very dependent on code, which is affected by multipath more than the carrier, whereas RTK is mostly a carrier-phase solution. That's something that was considered, or can you put in as a lesson learned for future projects?
No, I don't believe so. I came on this project very late, right before it went offshore. So the kit was already decided, and I think they had a frame agreement with some contractor or another who put on their standard spread. I didn't want to get too much into some of the lessons learned there. That thing was a lessons learned in its first edition, which I'm afraid I couldn't go into too much now. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Julian.
Yeah.
Really appreciated.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, our fourth and final presentation, Johan Stam from Skilltrade. I think this works and bookends very nicely the presentations we've had. Okay, this is, you guys, especially on the right side, probably may be curious about how to get into the industry. This is kind of, well, you can explain yourself, Johan. I'll leave it.
Thanks of all for the invitation. I'm pleased to be here. And also I can understand if I'm in your shoes, you're actually like to consider what is next after your education. So therefore we designed a logo, which is line of carrier. And here you have to make the choice. But with training, you see the light and you carry on your career. Skilltrade, already the word said that we actually trade skills. I have a core of 16 teachers. They're out of the industry. Some are retired, some are young. But actually we try to accomplish actually the interest in hydrography by telling them actually what's happening outside. So my presentation has been asked to be more on the project, but also how it comes actually in the function of personnel, how they operate. Press the button.
I'm sorry.
It's not just to the next one.
We just bought the system.
Okay.
So let's try again. No.
Sensitive.
Oh, there we go. Well, just need to
Here
press,
you
kind of press hard on it.
That's the press one. Okay. Press longer.
I'm sorry. Should we use just the space button?
Yeah.
That's it. That works.
Okay.
There you go. Sorry.
So a small explanation about my history over all these years. I have a degree in civil engineering, and actually after school I was interested in land survey, became involved with the underground in Amsterdam. Happy to be in Amsterdam, didn't make any money because life was good. Came across a dredging company and they took me all over the world. And I can say that over possibly 100 countries in the world I visit to set up the triangle, the basics, make sure the dredger came in, everything was working. And then, you work with different cultures. You like to train people, make across what's happening on the project, make it interesting, work with all kinds of authorities. And so later on, I became HR manager of Oceanics. And then I found actually that a lot of freelance people living in the world to coordinate. So I started an agency called DOOR. And then I came across a project for the government, and they wanted on bachelor level all kind of hydrography to check hydrography in the environmental dredging. 5 centimeters accuracy with the dredging company said, well, it's impossible. But we were able to set up an introduction course for all kind of people, and we couldn't find enough hydrographers because it's limited, it's not always well known. So we found people with a different background in marine biology, civil engineering, land survey, and we trained them up. And in almost a year, we had 60 people trained up, and a lot of surveyors actually stayed on the project. And later on, we found out they continue in hydrography because we learned as well that 50% in the business is about well-trained, 50% coming from a different angle, as earlier said. If you're motivated, interested, like to see what it's all about, you know, there is definitely a place for you. And this is a part of my presentation to show you how it comes together, how to get started as a junior. Here we go again. Press. Okay. So I've been asked how actually you come along from a project. So every project is different, you know, the different focus, different aim. On the project, of course, if you specify it, of course, like I said, safety is very important. Procedures, accuracy, as also mentioned tonight, different from project to project. Vessel, you know, small ones, big ones, it all varies. But of course, it's the function of personnel who make the success. And of course, if you tender for a project, you know, you like to be qualified as a winner, and then you're qualified because of quality as on price. The 3 items for a project, you specifying equipment, personnel, and planning. Let's look to the personnel approach of their qualification. I pressed something completely. I pressed it. Back again. Yep. So as also in the other presentation, this is.
Is the space going?
Very good.
Yeah.
Because you. This way.
Space, backspace.
It is.
Okay.
Now the next one. Yeah. Like I said, everybody is coming to the industry, like 50% with a different background. And of course, every survey team in general, you know, they have different levels, but you qualify them on education and experience. At the moment, the experience is getting into a new competence system, which is actually established by the hydrographic scientists all over the world. You find different regional offices, and approved by the International Hydrographic Office. And it's called HPAS, Hydrographic Personnel Assessment System. So let me, in brief, explain what this is, because the people like to be recognized. It's of course your certificate or education prove it, but if you carry on from the start, you like to actually prove your experience, not only by a resume, but also by qualification. So the qualification designed in levels, based on the Cat A and Cat B, I explain it later, is actually a starting level number 2. Level 1 is reached by 3 to 5 years experience, and level 0 with 10 years experience. And so this system is introduced by Hydrographic Society, and we actually notice now with Canada, Australia, slowly it's coming into the international market and being recognized. How does it work? That the institutes actually, like Skilltrade, are recognized by the IHO, so they're able to confirm the level of each student with a certificate. And I will explain that later, how this program and schedule is working. Each individual keep track of their own experience, which are evaluated by the HPAS board. That means there are people with experience all over the world in different regions. Actually, they evaluate the experience of the surveyor. Experience as training is relevant to keep on this level, because when you're educated, you like to keep up. This technology changes very much, and yeah, what is around is of course the practical experience, but with training and with conference, you're actually able to keep up with the technology. How can Skilltrade contribute to this support? Skilltrade started in 2000, but in 99 I said for the project of government for the environmental issues, we had the first introduction. It's very popular, runs every quarter of the year, and it's now online or in class around the world. The first edition of handbooks, there is not much around, but we're selling the books to universities, libraries, companies, have them on board to show actually what can actually happen in a project. In 2008, we asked the IHO for accreditation, but it was not easy because we were commercial, because most of the institutes like universities and so on, they were qualified. So we were able to have the qualification in 2008. 2016, we had a new approach, which was e-learning, which actually nowadays for the young generation, they are much more at home, working with the internet and with the different modules, you're able to train and to get into those subjects. And I come to that later. And in 2001, because of Corona, we had a hybrid, which means that we had an online curriculum with a practical in the Netherlands. So since 2008, we trained over 300 students. About 10% are not passing. So it's not that easy. You really have to put your time and effort in. And we train people at the moment, more than 67 countries. So we are pleased with the attention in the world for hydrography. We set up a scheme that how to get started is an induction free of charge, which you can download via our website. You have to register. And then you have an hour, actually, what hydrography is all about. This is very popular and actually, again, all over the world. Then we have a database, and then we ask you to attend the introduction. Introduction is 5 days, 3 hours online, or 2 days on location. After that is an advanced, so more in depth about the multi-beam, about tides, about side scan, more in depth how actually operate the equipment. Then there is a hands-on course, which is vessel installation, more about patch tests, calibrations, but more hands-on. Then we advise, like at companies in Australia, Mexico, they start actually with e-learning because it's part of the CAT B, but it can also be taken separately, and it contains 40% of the curriculum of the CAT B. So we try to evaluate steps in order to introduce a final certificate and to be recognized in the industry. And the latest CAT B recognition is totally 35 weeks, 27 weeks of theory, blended, which means online with e-learning, and then 6 weeks in the Netherlands. And I come to that later. To set up, at the moment, it's an online course with a maximum of 24 students. So 2 weeks lectures, different subjects. Every day we have a different subject in the morning and the afternoon. So the teacher is not teaching the whole day because you keep it fresh and the attention of the students. Then after 2 weeks, we have 2 weeks self-study. We have students in Australia, they actually do this while they work. If they're on standby with a vessel, they play back the recorded video. So they always keep up. And of course, when you do exams, you like to prepare again so you can play back the video as well. Then we have digital exams with the authority with proctor exams. If you pass the theory, then you're able to come to do your practice. 2 weeks practical in preparation to the project, and then 4 weeks comprehensive final project. And that means everything with started alignment, vessel installation, sailing, collecting data, processing, reporting, everything. The latest accreditation from the IHO, it's of course a debriefing to the teachers, assessment of teamwork, and individual reports, because each teacher evaluates a student. E-learning. Those are the different subjects: underwater acoustics, photometry systems, land surveying, GNSS, sensor positioning, coordinate reference systems. we had students actually that said, can I be prepared when I'm sitting in the train? Or so I said, well, let's develop e-learning, and we can even access by the Moodle mobile app. So it make it easier for students even to study in the time they want it. If you're interested, give us an email or information by email to Skilltrade, and Skilltrade provides you a week free of access to one of the modules. This is an idea on the practice. On the left side, you see the locks, the biggest locks in the world now, just finished, bigger than Panama. Of course, it's part also of land survey because you have to make the alignment for the vessel. On the left is the installation of the multi-beam in the front of the vessel. The vessel is coming completely empty, so the whole installation has to be done by the students, including the antenna and all the other interfaces and so on. And then they able to start collecting data. And of course, we also have the side scan explaining as well between the breakwaters. So almost close to sea, they have to do a survey, and the survey contained actually a corridor of 100 meters. And the idea is that there will be a cable laid. What is the geology? What some soil samples needs to be taken, but everything has to come in a report like a real project. To start this program, I went along the Dutch contacts and the port of Rotterdam. They said, well, every time you run a course, come along. So we're able to show the students how it works for the pilot, how the data goes to the pilots for safety navigation. The Royal Dutch Navy said, well, we can come along and lecture about our operational tasks for the data, for the charts, and more background on law of the sea. And of course, how the data is confirmed into a chart by cartography. We made an arrangement with QPS, a software company. They're based in Holland, so we choose that. And you can have a course on online and offline with them, but we included it in our course. So the students who are actually leaving and going home with a certificate, we can say they hands-on, have experience of the project, but also they receive a certificate of QPS that they're able to operate the software. Then, because of acoustic positioning, well, we went to Sonodyne, and they very supportive in order to have a lecture online. Before it was in the class, but now it's online as well. So it's great to have the support of them. Ocean-wise, about data management, they are well recognized in the industry about GIS. Beamworks is the latest Dutch processing package, cheaper, but also working very well and also more recognized. They have sold over 2,000 packages at the moment. Excel, the old XBlue, everything about the gyro, the octans, what you've seen before, they're helping us out. And Penny Plus is a company that doing marine archaeology, because every project on route engineering or installation of the wind, you need a clearance that the site survey or the area is clean. But in case there is a wreckage or something to do with marine archaeology, then the study has to take place. Like it is onshore, it's happening now also offshore about those permissions. A little bit give you a thought about how the market actually driven, because hydrography is coming into places in different areas. Let me give you some ideas. Of course, the hydrography at the moment, I think possibly 50-60% of all the surveys are related to windmills at the moment. And like in America, like in other places, it's really taking off with floating windmills as well in Japan. So, but everybody like to study. It's not only the seabed, but also the conditions of the tides, the currents, the waves. So oceanography is coming into this as well. Of course, there is more and more software, and you know there is optimization vehicles, which you actually steer like a robot, but there is data coming available, much more data. So in my view, the hydrographer surveyor is still required with his experience in order to pass on the data which actually needs to be transferred to a project for the engineering. JEPCO is an organization collecting the data of all the oceans. We know Mars 3 by 3 meters, the moon by 1 by 1 meter, and the oceans are 25% mapped. So there is a lot to do on that area. And now with deep sea mining, like happening in Norway, you know, you like to have more information. So it's coming more and more together. More qualification on the data, because the accuracy is improving. But of course, the data needs to be transferred, especially if you work in the project engineering like to know exactly what kind of accuracy has been used, because the accuracy has reached, then you make sure also that the data and the design is accordingly. HEPA system, I think it will be more and more recognized, not only for the project, but also more for the individual. Environmental, I think it's proven that we actually take more about the environment, but we like to know what is it all about. So they need the location. You need actually this kind of data to transfer the information. And I think with coastline, erosion, sea level rising, you know, the governments are getting more and more into this as well, as they like to know what's going to happen with the sea level rising with their coastline. And last but not least is, you know, I see that for the individuals, it's in hydrography, we see a lot of people actually, especially in England, being self-employed, looking after their own planning, but they need to be recognized by the industry according to project specifications. Technology moves on, so we have to do something there as well. So I've explained to you the various steps in the introduction, advanced and hands-on. We're doing now a route engineering in steps. You know, it really starts step by step on the geophysical side with side scan and other equipment, but it makes things becoming more alive for the project themselves. Cable installation, OXO surveys, it all comes down to the data, how it's been achieved, how actually was it actually accepted, you know, by the QC people who look after the final data. What we do is to recently about the specs of a project to lecture or to prepare a project for the people, that they actually have a better idea what the kind of systems are working and how it is achieved according to those specifications. On a higher level, we lecturing law of the sea and marine ecology. As I said, is becoming more important. GIS, I think it's really taking off everywhere, not only on shore, but now in the marine world as well. And yeah, last but not least, is that our students all over the world are our best ambassador, because, you know, if you have a good reputation, they pass it on. And that's the end of my presentation. I think there is much more to do on education. I found in the world there are institutes, but not enough, because this function requires more people. In respect, I have a present for your students to Armand for a book, and you can find it on our website. Because with books, of course, there is Google, but it is still nice to have something in your hands to read.
Thank you, Johan. Yeah, no, I agree about the books. I've bought several of them and various different iterations of those books through the years. So thank you very much for your time. That was extremely good. I hope that was useful to show that it's not just land survey. Land survey can then lead in hydrographic survey, but it's always good to have some sort of education or some qualifications and some certificates to say that you know that side of the operation. So I don't have any questions. Does anyone have any questions at all for Johan? Any from you guys at all?
I have one again.
Oh, of course.
It's Anders Hånslien from Equinor. And you mentioned it in your last slide, UPSO, unexploded ordnance.
Yeah.
And that is getting more and more in the picture.
Yeah.
With the renewables and offshore wind.
Yeah.
I was waiting for the kind of clue word, UPSO, and you got it in the last slide there, but is that going to get more important in your education and your preparations for the students, or?
Correct. And so to explain more about to recover. Actually, you explain the equipment, but what's most important is the interpretation, because during the survey there are a lot of boulders or containers or some other obstacles on the seabed. So how to interpret this? So that's about the course, that we have a geophysicist doing the lecture. I have, in preparation to that, we have a cable installation and about route engineering, experts on that side. But for the OXO, we have a senior geophysicist from South Africa. He works all over the world. So a lot of information which is allowed to show, because you're not always allowed to pass on data of a project. But that's his aim. And tomorrow I have a meeting with Equinor about his courses.
Because they need to know what's going on.
Yeah, Ricardo from NOS. I'm just curious here, if we have so many students, and I see there is a good fitting of your courses. So typically, to start the training in your company, do you have more people out of the, let's say, school, or with a bachelor degree, then they want to specialize in Cat A and Cat B hydrography?
Yeah. So the industry is asking for certification, but it's also by the individual. So today we had a meeting that people who have been out of the industry for 10 years, how to be trained. And they have the feeling to be on board, and they have that feeling how to put a fish overboard and this kind of safety regulation. But they have to get into the software. They need to be trained. They have to be trained on the equipment, how the multi-beam and other systems are coming together. So on young people, that's why we have those steps on the introduction, advanced, because at first it's the interest. It starts, the marathon starts with the first step, and from there you developed, of course, your own choice, but you developed actually your experience. And to be better prepared on the project, that's why we have experienced teachers in order to prepare it. So it's a team of people. We did it for a project for a route engineering, to sit down with engineering, tender people, that they really have an idea what is going to happen. So it's more interesting, but also it saves possibly money, but also a better communication with the project starts. So on that side, we see it always a mixture of experience and young starters.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and they could, because you mentioned it's now a mixture between the online and in-person courses. So let's say when they finish the course here, bachelor degree, is it possible, for example, to do everything online, being in Bergen and getting a Cat A or Cat B hydrography course?
Yeah. Okay. And of course, the Corona, I was wondering myself what to do. And so I called the IHO. I said, well, we like to be online. And they said, there is no guideline for it. I said, well, at all the universities and others, they're teaching online. So why cannot have a hydrography course online? So I got the approval from the education board, and they approved it. And they said, as soon Corona is over, you have to go back to class. And I said, I'm sorry, because now I'm reaching much more out to the world. I found more interesting, and I like to keep the online going. And they extended the 4 weeks practical to 6 weeks and individual assessment of each student. And I think it's a nice combination, but you have a good idea that somebody's leaving with a certificate, but also that's how now it's been more accepted, because not only because of Corona, but online, it's, you're reaching out with, so long you have a good connection with the internet, but most of the students all over the world, they were able to find, and if it's a problem we had in an Africa country, even an embassy was willing to have the student, I think Ivory Coast, to have the student at the embassy to follow the course.
All right, very interesting. Thank you very much.
Yeah, try to complicate.
I've got one question, and then I think John has. What's the ratio of self-funded students and then company-funded students? Do you notice? Is it 50-50 or?
No, I think it's. If I look to the students of the Cat B, for example, it's 80% supported by the by the employer and 20% individual. If I look to the introduction, it's the other way around. You know, because a lot of students interested, they like to see, is it something for me? So the teacher, of course, he introduced himself, but during the course, he's asking, what is your background? And so then it goes around. So after 3 or 4 days, becoming more open, you know how it is. But if it's more open, then they're coming with questions and they say, what is it? What is it something for me? And so then you discuss the opportunities. And my advice is go along a company like Dov is doing with trainees, is perfect, all the way to Senegal. But just a port authority or something close, I think they're always willing. I take my students in Holland to the port of Rotterdam for a day, you know, and then you can see what it's all about.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, last question, then we're going to wrap up, John.
Well, it's a two-part question, Stuart.
Just the one.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I see you started off as a pure hydrography and over the years have expanded into other areas for the offshore industry. Today there's a lot of construction work going on and we use the same sensors but in a different way, ROV based,
Yeah.
we bring in acoustics.
Yeah.
Have you considered going into that line of training?
Yeah. We have more and more short courses. And like I said, the start of an introduction and advance, we do also different subjects. And so on ROV sensors, geophysical, we have separate courses.
Okay, and the second part of the question, I think your presentation today is probably the first one the students here have fully understood. I know mine and the other two use lots of acronyms, lots of industry terms, which we all know about, but have you considered producing a book of those terms which students can use?
What should I say? It's
I think that would be useful even for people in the industry to have. I get bamboozled, to use your word.
to give an example, New Brunswick, Canada, university, which is a master level, they keep track of the students for 1 year. So during that year, they contact the students and they said, was our curriculum useful? Did you miss something? What kind of work is what you do? What do you advise us? And that's before universities, everybody in education, they deliver the students all the best. But now with the industry coming closer to education, I see there is a much more match what is required. And now that's one of the reasons I started Skilltrade.
Cool.
That was the same feedback we had at my university. What was missing? Talk of acronyms. Because once we headed out there, people started talking a different language. Yeah.
There you go, something to work on. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much, Johan. This is mine. Yeah, that's the wrap up. I think those are 4 very, very interesting and presentations that nicely presented a little bit about what survey can offer you guys, and also I hope maybe some of the more experienced people in the audience learned something too. So thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it. We'll probably see you guys in about 4 or 5 months' time back here in Bergen at your school. So thank you very much for attending, and make sure you use the time to network and go downstairs. There's a bar, albeit very expensive, and there's some food still there. Take the cheeses because they're very nice. So thank you very much for coming. Cheers.